Zelensky has just arrived at the White House. That is him standing there with the President of the United States, Donald Trump, for their scheduled meeting, of course, which the EU leaders have come along with him to prevent what happened earlier in February, where Zelensky was kind of humiliated by Trump and his Vice President, J.D. Vance. All right, that's the live visuals you're watching there. Back to you, Marek. Now, let me ask you this. In the event that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, how does both Trump and the EU guarantee, if there's anything like that, that Putin will abide by the dotted lines of whatever agreement is reached?
No such possibility exists. This is media fodder. This is just a way of bringing about a peace treaty. As I stated, just to finish off, some sort of peace treaty can be made, which will give Ukraine peace for some time, but there's no permanent peace treaty. It does not exist in this world, and certainly not with Russia. Incidentally, your footage now, if I may comment on it very quickly, notice the difference between how President Zelensky is greeted and President Putin. It's quite clear where President Donald Trump's sympathies lie. No red carpet. It's a little point, of course, but all these little points matter so much. Not even to his car. If you look carefully on the screen right now, you'll see there's nothing like that. And so, therefore, this in itself shows that the negotiations between President Putin and President Trump were on a different level to what President Trump and Zelensky. There is no meeting of equals between President Trump and President Zelensky, whereas that was the impression given when he met President Putin. These are very important signals, and in their own, they show that the negotiations that are about to take place now will be rather one-sided, I'm afraid.
That's quite a pity, because Putin is the aggressor in this war. I mean, the world knows that. But EU leaders said no discussions over territory could take place without Kiev's involvement and clear arrangements to safeguard the rest of Ukraine's land.
Yeah, well, they'll obviously make these arrangements, but they're quite meaningless. The only thing will save Ukraine, as I said, that actually Russia's going to attack Poland next, according to my books, and not, in fact, Ukraine. However, the key point here is, and this is very important, they'll have to change the constitution in some way. They'll have to, because in effect, Ukraine is one and indivisible, like the 1905 Russian constitution. And they're going to have to do something about that. And they have to go through Ukraine parliament and so on. There is no question of a quick deal. And there's no question of it not being examined over and over again. What is important is these talks are taking place. And so there is some possibility of some peace treaty. And that is about the best we can say at present. But clearly, President Trump wants President Zelensky to cede land.
On security guarantees, could Zelensky rely on the U.S. to deliver on some NATO Article 5 type promise to defend Ukraine if Russia breaches any peace agreement?
I have bad news for you on that one. Article 5 is a piece of fiction, more or less. It says there that, of course, and this is the thing you're thinking about, how an attack on one nation will be an attack on all, and this is obviously what Poles believe in particular, whereas what it actually goes on to say is, and the nations, the other ones that is, shall therefore take action as they see fit. Now, that means that they don't have to actually do anything. Now, this is the point that's going to occur soon, because assuming the Ukrainian conflict is brought to an end, then in fact, with the attack on Poland, the Poles will be, unfortunately, have an unpleasant surprise that as in 1939, they're going to be by themselves. Therefore, extrapolating back to Ukraine, which is the point of your question, yes, Putin doesn't mind them having a clause 5. If it's written like clause 5, there's a get out for all the other nations, in particular USA, which does not see this as its war, does not want to take place, and does not want to really help. It's quite prepared to sell arms, by the way, and that's about the limit.
Now, look, all right, Marek, I will get back to you. Looks like or while we're watching feeds from America, Trump and Zelensky there, Trump speaking, I think the meeting has even started in the White House. Just to reiterate that Trump calls Zelensky immediately after the meeting with Putin, and just like he said, he got across to EU leaders as well that he will be meeting with Zelensky.
Thank you, and using this opportunity, many thanks to your wife, First Lady of the United States. She sent a letter to Putin about our children, abducted children, and my wife, First Lady of Ukraine. She gave the letter. It's not to you, to your wife.
Oh, I want it.
Yeah. So we are saying this sensitive topic, yes, please. And thanks to our partners, and that you supported this format, that after our meeting we can have leaders who are around us, UK, France, Germany, Italy, Finland, EU, NATO, I mean all partners around Ukraine supporting us. Thanks to them, and thank you very much for invitation.
Thank you very much for being here.
President Trump.
Do you think it's fair?
Yes, Peter, go ahead.
Thank you, President Trump. So, President Zelensky, you say in a post on X today, Russia must end this war, which it itself started. President Trump, you say President Zelensky of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to. Which is it?
No, I think that's true. I think we're going to have a meeting. I think if everything works out well today, we'll have a trilat. And I think there will be a reasonable chance of ending the war when we do that.
And is this the end of the road for American support for Ukraine? Is today's meeting deal or no deal?
I can never say that. It's never the end of the road. People are being killed and we want to stop that. So I would not say it's the end of the road. No, I think we have a good chance of doing it. It's been almost 4 years now that a lot of people were killed last week. A lot of people last week. I mean, millions of people killed, but a lot of people last week for whatever reason. A big number, a lot of soldiers, on both sides. And I know the president, I know myself, and I believe Vladimir Putin wants to see it ended.
And as you met with Putin on Friday, today you've got President Zelensky here. As you listen to Russia and Ukraine, which side has the better cards?
Well, I don't want to say that. I'm just here to be, look, this isn't my war. This is Joe Biden's war. He's the one that had a lot to do with this happening, and we want to get it ended. And we want it to end good for everybody. We want it to end good. The people of Ukraine have suffered incredibly.
And to that point, President Zelensky, are you prepared to keep sending Ukrainian troops to their deaths for another couple years, or are you going to agree to redraw the maps?
Thank you for your question. So, first of all, we live under each day attacks. That today have been a lot of attacks and a lot of wounded people, and the child was dead, small one year and a half. So we need to stop this war, to stop Russia, and we need support American and European partners. And we will do our best for this. So, and I think we show that we are strong people, and we supported the idea of the United States, personally of President Trump, to stop this war, to make a diplomatic way of finishing this war. And we are ready for trilateral, as President said. This is a good signal about trilateral. I think this is very good. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes, if the peace deal will be achieved, are you going to be willing to send American peacekeepers to Ukraine?
Well, we're going to work with Ukraine. We're going to work with everybody, and we're going to make sure that if there's peace, the peace is going to stay long-term. This is very long-term. We're not talking about a 2-year peace and then we end up in this mess again. We're going to make sure that everything's good. We'll work with Russia. We're going to work with Ukraine, and we're going to make sure it works. And I think if we can get to peace, it's going to work. I have no doubt about it.
Your team has talked about security guarantees. Could that involve U.S. troops? Would you roll that out in the future?
We'll let you know that maybe later today. We're meeting with 7 great leaders of great countries also, and we'll be talking about that. They'll all be involved, but there'll be a lot of is going to be. They are first line of defense because they're there. They're Europe, but we're going to help them out also. We'll be involved.
Mr. President, Vladimir Putin mentioned that the war will not end without addressing the root causes of this war. Have you had an understanding what are the root causes of this war?
Well, look, the war is going to end. When it ends, I can't tell you, but
All right, that was Zelensky and Trump there discussing, answering questions from journalists. Trump took quite a lot of questions. He said, never the end of the road. Yeah, I still have. Mark, I'll just get to you in a bit when I reel out some of the things that Trump said and what Zelensky said, and maybe have you make sense of what you heard there from both leaders. Trump says, never the end of the road. We have a good chance of doing this. I believe Putin wants to see it end. I don't know what the EU leaders will be thinking about that and what you two will be thinking about that. For Zelensky, just the one question that he was asked, he said, we need to stop this war. All right, over to you, Marek. What do you make of, what's your sense of what you heard, and not just what you heard, but the body language is very important, you know, when you watch people speak in a meeting. Marek.
Well, the first important thing, if we can start on body language, is that his body language is stiffer with Zelensky than with Putin, which repeats what I said previously, that the meeting with Vladimir Putin was on a different level. However, that is not the fundamental issue here. The one is, has President Donald Trump stated anything new? Well, actually, he's repeated his key points. He likes the war to end. That, number two, he keeps making vague comments that he's prepared to help Ukraine afterwards in a security sense, but is not actually given any details. And it depends what that means. Does it mean just supply Starlink to them? It's very unclear. That's not clear now. Thirdly, he has made it quite clear he doesn't see that as his war, but on the other hand, he's not going to straight away walk away from it. He was very guarded also about making any comment before the meeting, which was very correctly diplomatic of him. And so what we have at present is that the meeting will take place in as pleasant an atmosphere as is possible between Donald Trump and President Zelensky. President Zelensky, for his part, I think missed the opportunity to state precisely how committed he is to Ukraine's territories not being ceded, which is interesting because up till now he's been quite clear, and now for the first time he only answered on minor points. If you like, he didn't make the main point. And I'm wondering whether that implies there's some flexibility in his thinking.
I'm sorry, I have to interject there. We're going back to the live feed coming from the White House on the meeting between Trump and Zelensky. I'll get back to you afterwards.
Yeah, looks good on you. That's the one that attacked you last time. See, now he's
I remember that.
Yeah, I apologize to you. You look wonderful. No, my first question for you, President Zelensky.
In the same suit. You see, I changed, you are not.
Maybe yours is much better. Real quickly, upon peace, God willing we get peace, are you open to holding an election in your country?
Yes, of course. We are open for election, yes. We have to do safety circumstances, and a little bit we need to work in the parliament, because during the war you can't have elections, but we can do security. We need, maybe, how to say, we need a truth, yes. everywhere, in the battlefield, in the sky, in the sea, yeah, to make possible for people to do democratic, open, legal elections.
So you say
we're ready.
during the war, you can't have elections. So let me just say, 3.5 years from now, so you mean if we happen to be in a war with somebody, no more elections? Oh, that's good. I wonder what the fake
You like
news
this
is.
idea?
Yeah.
No.
Speaking of news, I got a question for you. This sounds insane for me even to ask this, but do you think the American media really doesn't even want a peace deal because they've seen they've been so critical of you every step of the way as you lead the charge for peace?
It's an amazing phenomenon. I said that if in the settlement you got Moscow, St. Petersburg, and thousands of miles around them, they would say, I made a bad deal. The level of hatred and animosity is incredible. Not with all. I mean, we have great people up here. We also have terrible people up there that I think are told what to say. But, you know, in solving all of these wars, they don't even write about it. You know, I saw major wars. I saw wars that have been going on for 31, 35, and 37, and a couple of quicker ones. One that was going to go into a full-blown deal very quickly. You know what the one I'm talking about. It was a big one. But they don't even write about that. No matter what I do, no matter what, and you know, this is not anything to do with you. It's probably to your advantage in a certain way. But no matter what I do, no matter what deal I make, from my standpoint, you'll come out good. Maybe President Putin will come out good. But they'll say, Trump was absolutely horrible. It's just that, and I've lived with that for a long time. I've lived with it since just before the first election. I used to get great publicity. Now I get the worst publicity anyone's ever gotten in office, but I won in a landslide, so the people understand. They're the only ones that count, ultimately. But I've also had great reporters. I've had journalists that are very good. But it's very sad when you do the right thing. As an example, they said, because of the fact that Vladimir Putin came to American soil, this was a tremendous defeat for Donald Trump. No, it was really wonderful that he did it. It was a hard thing for him to do, to be honest with you. It was the opposite of what they said, but they said it. Now, if he didn't come, they'd say that was also bad for Trump. You know, there's no way. And there's just a great dishonesty of the press, and I think that's why it's lost its credibility. You know, its credibility is at an all-time low. We have a thing going on right now in D.C. We went from the most unsafe place anywhere to a place that now friends are calling me up, Democrats are calling me up, and they're saying, sir, I want to thank you. My wife and I went out to dinner last night for the first time in 4 years, and Washington, D.C. is safe, and you did that in 4 days. I'll tell you, it's safe. I had another friend of mine. He has a son who's a great golfer. He's on tour, and he came in fourth yesterday in the big tournament where Scotty Scheffler made the great shot, and he said his son is going to dinner in Washington, D.C. tonight. I said, would you have allowed that to happen a year ago? He said, no way, no way. He said, what you've done is incredible. And I think the people realize it. But the press says, he's a dictator, he's trying to take over. No, all I want is security for our people. But people that haven't gone out to dinner in Washington, D.C. in 2 years are going out to dinner. And the restaurants the last 2 days were busier than they've been in a long time. Thank you.
I walked around yesterday with MTG. If you can walk around with DC with MTG and not be attacked, the city is safe.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last week you warned of what you called severe consequences if a 30-day ceasefire or any type of ceasefire were not agreed to by Russia. Will there be severe consequences? Does that change because of
I
your
don't
meeting
think
with
you need a
President Putin?
ceasefire. You know, if you look at the 6 deals that I settled this year, they were all at war. I didn't do any ceasefires. And I know that it might be good to have, but I can also understand strategically why, well, you know, one country or the other wouldn't want it. You have a ceasefire and they rebuild and rebuild and rebuild, and, you know, maybe they don't want that. But if you look at the 6 deals that we made peace and you know, long-term, long-running wars, I didn't do any ceasefires. Would I like the concept, I like the concept of a ceasefire for one reason, because you'd stop killing people immediately, as opposed to in 2 weeks or 1 week or whatever it takes. But we can work a deal where we're working on a peace deal while they're fighting. They have to fight. I wish they could stop. I'd like them to stop. But strategically, that could be a disadvantage for one side or the other. But all of these deals I made without even the mention of the words ceasefire.
President Zelensky, are
Can
you
you
disappointed that there's no
explain the
ceasefire?
decision to offer Ukraine Article 5-like security guarantees, but stop short of pushing for their full membership?
Yeah, well, we haven't done anything on that yet. If you look back and you go back long before President Putin, it was always a statement that they would never allow Ukraine into NATO. So that was a statement that was made, but we haven't discussed any of that yet. We're going to be discussing it today. But we will give them very good protection, very good security. That's part of it. And the people that are waiting for us, they are, I think they're very like-minded. They want to help out all.
Thank you, President. Thank you, President Trump.
Are you disappointed there's no
The United
ceasefire, Mr.
States,
President?
the United States has already given hundreds of billions of dollars to this war effort in Ukraine. At best, it is a stalemate, and the killing continues. So, President Trump, how much more is the United States willing to give Ukraine? And President Zelensky, how much more do you want?
Well, I'll start off just by saying we're not giving anything now. We're selling weapons. This is something before, I guess the number is well over $300 billion. That was under Joe Biden, a corrupt politician, not a smart man, never was. By the way, go back 40 years, he was not a smart man 40 years ago either, but now he's in particular bad. This was done by a corrupt administration that shouldn't have been in, and frankly, if the right results of the election were given, if I were president, this war would have never taken place, and he would have been very happy, because he would have liked to have seen. I mean, they went through hell. He went through hell. This war would have never happened, and the people that were killed, a couple of million people, a lot of people with soldiers and everything else, and the people that have been displaced and forced into other areas and other countries because of what's happened, none of that would have happened. And I'm just saying that he was a horrible president, whether it was the borders or this. He was just a horrible, corrupt president.
Mr. President,
You want to
I can. Thank you so much. So first of all, we have possibility now to buy weapon from the United States. We are thankful for this program and this opportunity. We are thankful for Europe. They pay for this. And through NATO program, for example, Pearl and etc., we have some programs where we can have some money to finance this. And this is a part, I think, it's not a part for the war and to defend us. It also will be a part for security guarantees, to strengthen our army, to rearm Ukrainian army. This is very, very important. And it depends how much money we need to rearm. For example, the question of air defense, we spoke about it with President Trump, and I'm happy that we have now bilateral decisions and we work on it with production, American production. Nobody in Europe has so many air defense like Patriots, for example.
Just to give you a little bit of what you've heard, what you've been watching, President Zelensky, the one now speaking just a while ago, he was saying that he was asked about election. He said, yes, to election, there'll be election, but of course then it's dependent on the fact that there is a war now, so you can't have a war when there is, you can't have election rather, when there is a war going on. I mean, the security implications, disorganization, so that won't be possible, according to Zelensky. He also thanked, Trump and the EU for this program, talking about whether they will have weapons or finance, to execute the war. So he thanked Trump, thank the Americans for this program, thank the EU also for the support they have given, and that this talk is even going on at all. While on the part of Trump, he delved into, I think somebody asked him a question about the fact that the fact of the National Guards being sent to places like Washington without even the authorization or otherwise. I mean, there's a question of the constitutionality of that because you have to route it through the governors of the states, but Trump just sent the guards there. And then he was speaking there about the fact that he talked about according to him, what he called dishonesty of the press. That is according to Trump. And then he said a Democrat and his wife, both of them called him and said Washington is now safe, according to them, according to what Trump said, because of what Trump said. All right, we'll take you back to that discussion between Trump and Zelensky at the White House.
Secure form. So between paper ballots, very, very important, paper ballots, and I think maybe even more important, the mail-in voting. We're going to end mail-in voting. It's a fraud. If you have mail-in vote, even Jimmy Carter with this commission, they set it up. He said the one thing about mail-in voting, you will never have an honest election if you have mail-in. And it's time that the Republicans get tough and stop it, because the Democrats want it. It's the only way they can get elected. Because with men and women's sports and with transgender for everybody and open borders and all of the horrible things, and now the new thing is they love crime. They're fighting me on the fact that I've made Washington, D.C. safe. We're not going to get mugged, beaten up, or killed like all the people you've been watching get so badly hurt. I'm glad, I hate to take your time with this, but I'm glad you asked me that question.
Sorry.
We're going to stop mail-in ballots because it's corrupt. You know, when you go to a voting booth and you do it the right way and you go to a state that runs it properly, you go in, they even ask me, they asked me for my license plate, for identity. I said, I don't know if I have it. They said, sir, you have to have it. I was very impressed, actually. But it's very hard to cheat with mail-in voting. As you know what happens in California, it's so corrupt, where some people get 5, 6, 7 ballots delivered to them. Now, we got to stop mail-in voting, and the Republicans have to lead the charge. The Democrats want it because they have horrible policy. If you have mail-in voting, you're not going to have many Democrats get elected. That's bigger than anything having to do with redistricting, believe me. And the Republicans have to get smart. We're not going to have a country. I said for a long time at rallies, you need borders and you need free and fair elections. Those two things, otherwise you don't have. We have strong borders now. In 90 days, Mr. President, we didn't have 1, 0, 0, and 3 months. Not one person came in illegally into our country. In fact, even I find that hard to believe, but it's run by a little bit of a liberal group that put out the numbers, so I guess it's, but 0, 0, and 0. You go back a year ago, 2 years ago, 3, millions of people poured into our country. It was terrible. Thank you very much.
From President Trump to be able to make a deal? Is it American troops, intelligence, equipment? What is it?
Everything. And really, it includes 2 parts. First, strong Ukrainian army. That's what I began to discuss with your colleagues. And it's a lot about weapon and then people and training missions and intelligence. And second, we will discuss with our partners. It depends on the big countries, on the United States, on a lot of our friends.
And Mr. President, are you willing to commit American troops to that NATO-like protection in order to get President Zelensky to a deal today?
Well, I don't know if you define it that way, but NATO-like, I mean, we're going to give, we have people waiting in another room right now. They're all here from Europe, biggest people in Europe, and they want to give protection. They feel very strongly about it, and we'll help them out with that. I think it's very important. I think it's very important to get the deal done.
You've been involved with the peacekeeping in Ukraine since your first day in the administration. What would you say to the Ukrainian people right now who are suffering under the Russian attacks and hoping that the American people will stand with them?
Well, I know Ukrainian people. I've known many over the years. They're great people. They're smart. They're energetic. They love their country. mean, they love their country, and we want to get this war ended. That's all I can do. I love the Ukrainian people, but I love all people. I love the Russian people. I love them all. I want to get the war stopped. Very important.
Mr. President, was there any aspect of your discussion with Vladimir Putin that left you disappointed?
Look, we just spoke to, I was just telling the president, I just spoke to President Putin indirectly, and we're going to have a phone call right after these meetings today. And we may or may not have a trilat. If we don't have a trilat, then the fighting continues. And if we do, we have a good chance. I think if we have a trilat, there's a good chance of maybe ending it. But he's expecting my call when we're finished with this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, press. Let's go. Let's go. Move. Come on, guys. Let's go. Thank you, guys. Thank you, press. Thank you. Keep moving. Thank you, guys.